Okay, guys, we're starting here in 2 seconds. Let's go. Oh, I start my phone. Pat, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, hold on. I'm trying to do this on my phone and get the other one set up. Give me 2 seconds here.
No
Happy
problem.
to see you. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good to see you. Well, the logo anyway.
Yeah, get this fucking thing off here. Hold on. Yeah, it's good. I got it. I got it. So, turn your volume down. We might have to turn mine down, but my speaker might be louder than yours. So, where the fuck is? Yeah. How the fuck do I turn this on? Give me 2 seconds.
Okay.
Boom.
Yo.
Gotta get this dumb background off now. Fuck.
It's not dumb. Looks cool.
Volume down.
Just might not apply to what we're doing today.
Man, I don't need to be in outer space, dude. You ain't Elon Musk.
Thank God.
All right. So let's do this. Guys, come on. Get in here, man. Come on. He can't fucking see you. Can you see all these guys on Sandra's screen?
I'm starting to see them. Yeah.
Okay, guys, can you get in here, guys?
Let me turn the volume up like this.
Yeah, hold on. I'm going to try turning you up on the computer. Hold on. Let's test this out.
All right. Find a partner and start fighting now.
All right. So, guys. Shit, I'm echoing. All right.
That's
So,
okay.
this is the man, Pat Miletich, UFC Hall of Fame, first ever, welterweight coach, welterweight champion for UFC, coach to 11. Is it 11? I always fuck that up. Is it 11 or more?
12.
World MMA champions.
Yeah. 95 televised athletes and two IFL team world titles as well, which I'm actually really proud of that. That was
The IFL
tough,
was sick, man.
It was a tough
We've
league.
actually got another IFL coach here, Frank Shamrock, but
Yeah.
these guys are here gathered up. Yeah, can you mute that? The mic. Let me help.
I don't have my mic on.
Oh yeah. All right. Can you hear everybody or no? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh well, they can't hear you.
Check.
Right. Well, we're just got a little echo. I might have to move away a little bit. Okay, so and make sure my microphone's on. So I got all this group here, and they want to ask you questions with regards to maybe succeeding in MMA or succeeding as an MMA coach, and there's nobody better on the planet than you to speak to this. Who wants to go first? Who's got a good question for Pat? I warned him, it better not be stupid questions. Okay, yeah, Blake, come over here, Blake.
Oh, nice. How you doing, Blake?
What up, big dog? Hey, so I'm curious on what your opinion is of competitors cutting weight. You've been around the sport since guys are doing major cuts, no weight classes, and I think cutting weight's coming to a little bit of a new mindset in terms of less massive weight cuts, particularly on short notice. What are your thoughts on weight cutting in general, and maybe changes in over time in that opinion?
Yeah, I appreciate it. Good to see you again, Blake. Always good to see you, buddy. And my view, because I started probably too young, cutting weight in 6th grade. So it affected, I think, because I cut weight during the winter, during wrestling season, and I cut weight also during the summer for freestyle. The only time that I ate during the entire year was during football season. That all 3 of my brothers were 6'5", and I ended up being 5'10". So it honestly probably stunted my growth. So there's some negative effects, I think, to it, definitely. But I will say this. that cutting weight, if you've trained as intensely as we did back in the day, cutting huge amounts of weight wasn't that difficult. Sure, it was tough, but we were so insanely conditioned that cutting weight, as far as intelligently shrinking your meals and burning the what remaining fat you had off your body and becoming a very efficient machine. And then also going through that weight cut, if you think about it, people do fasting now these days and they call it healthy. Well, we were doing that our whole lives as wrestlers and as fighters, in fasting and getting rid of dumping toxins and anything else that was built up in us. And so it was a psychological thing too, because you go through the suffering phase of the training camp and then the weight cut, and then you rehydrate and put calories back in. And by the time we'd walk in the cage, you'd feel literally bulletproof, as your nickname kind of tells us, right? So I think there's good and bad, but I think it's it's like putting the polish on the warrior to me. Unless you've lived it, which a lot of people haven't, they can be critics. Joe Rogan can criticize it. The guy's never cut weight like we have. He doesn't understand the intensity of a real fight, and certainly at the level that we competed at, right? So when I listen to people who are not experts, and I don't care what anybody says, Rogan's not an expert, I don't listen to him, right? So that's really what it comes down to. But you've got to be conditioned so intensely and in such good condition that cutting weight isn't that tough for you, right? If that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think doing it appropriately, having the right amount of caloric deficit and so forth, like you mentioned,
Yeah,
to become an efficient fighting machine instead of a depleted fighting machine.
sure. Great question.
Let me see if anybody else question?
Yeah. So whoever's next, come on, take this, go in the hallway, right by that.
I have a question. I've never grappled in the cage before. Do you have any drills or good throws to focus on having that wall as a barrier for people who've never competed in that area?
I think doing a lot of wall work is very important. Number one, not only takedowns off the wall or defending on the wall and understanding how to reverse positions and all of that, but certainly how to get up off the mat when you're up against the wall or pinned or trapped, because, if you're sideways against the cage, for instance, or your head's crushed against it, it's awful tough to hit an elbow escape to get out of a bad position. So there's got to be a lot of different ways to get out of really tight, tough situations. And look, there's guys out there that I trained with, and virtually impossible to take them down against the wall. Learning how to use it as your friend, whether you're against it or whether you've got your opponent against it, right? So there's, as much work as you can do, and drills deliberately, at least for us, in fighting, we would stick each other against the wall constantly, whether we were on our feet or on the ground, and force each other to get out of those bad positions. I mean, you want that. So if you look at it like this, a golfer, to be a great golfer, I've got to be really good from really terrible situations. And so I've got to throw 10 buckets of balls in the sand trap every day and hit out of it until hitting out of the sand isn't a big deal. Like I can hole from there, or put the ball four inches from the pin from the sand, automatically. It's no different for MMA, grappling, or any of that, right?
Okay, thank you. And just as an example for a drill, just put on a timer, have my opponent just keep pressuring me and just trying to stuff me, and then I just keep escaping. Is that a good idea for a fundamental drill?
I think putting a really good wrestler on top of you with your head crushed up against the wall
Okay.
is a really, really pleasant experience.
Okay. Can't wait. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for your time. Big fan. Appreciate you. My question is, as a coach, how do you kind of split your time between maybe drilling and technical parts of training and live? What would you say your percentages are? What do you focus more on? Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Good question. We spent most of the mornings would be technique, and then in strength and conditioning stuff, and then the live goes for wrestling, grappling, and striking would be in the evening. More, I guess the best way to look at it is we would do our fight training when we would actually be fighting on the clock, right? So if we had fights in Japan, we would train at 3 a.m. We would do fight training at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Just to get used to that's when we were going to be fighting in Japan, right? So, but strength and conditioning and technique should be done in the morning, and then fight speed training should be done at night.
So you say that's like 50-50 in your camps?
Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing. The guy with the best fundamentals and the best gas tank is almost always going to win, right? So one of my favorite sayings is, I would rather fight a great fighter in mediocre shape than a mediocre fighter in great shape. So
Makes sense.
gas tank and technique, though, are, I mean, that's what wins.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Here you go.
Yeah, we gotta make it just.
Yeah, first off, Mr. Miletich, definitely an honor and a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
So, as a 22-year veteran of law enforcement, I'm interested in how you might advise other law enforcement of implementing MMA and wrestling, for that matter, into law enforcement training, with the caveat of we really can't throw strikes. I just want to get your take and your opinion.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And certainly I've spent, over, I guess, a quarter of a century training law enforcement and military, and have had the honor of doing that. And yeah, depending on the job, you know what I mean? So, of course, a lot of, use of force continuums and things like that. You've got some problems, obviously. If you're on camera striking, everybody's got a cell phone, there's all kinds of issues that have arisen over the years, and I've watched that all proceed and cause a lot of problems for you guys, to be honest with you, because you're always worried, stressed about, lawsuits and things like that, which shouldn't be the situation. But nonetheless, the fundamentals of self-defense and how to control another human's body really haven't changed that much. There's a lot of, say, for instance, people in grappling who think they're inventing techniques. That they're not inventing anything, they're rediscovering, right?
Right.
So anybody that names a technique after themselves are a little a little egotistical, to say the least. But applications of, for me, when I teach law enforcement and military at the basic level, it's always the 3 H's: the head, the hands, and the hips. If I control the 3 H's, the head, the hands, and the hips, and I know where their hands are at all times, I'm generally going to come out in a pretty decent situation. But the fundamentals of movement, I mean, look, human beings don't even, most humans, besides you guys and a few others on the planet, don't even know how to control their own bodies, let alone another human's body. That's why we see a lot of officers injured on the job, because they can't even control themselves. So it ends up in a what they call a pig pile, right? You know the term.
Right.
So
Yep.
Super important to do fundamentals of movement, mechanics, things like that, and then focusing on fundamental drills, which we teach, for even a 40-hour course during a week. They can break down the entire week in a 5-minute drill, from standing to ground to back on their feet to prone position to all those different situations, getting out of bad situations, all of it. So it's all about fundamentals, though. It always will be, right? And so controlling the 3 H's, though, is super important. And of course, the situational awareness, we know that a lot of problems arise. The guy that's almost off work, almost off his shift, got to go pick up his kid from school, whatever it might be that's distracting him, and boom, things go to shit, right?
Right.
And that's the thing. And I think a lot of folks in that world think that having a badge and a gun will protect them, and we just know it's a very hostile world out there. And I wish more officers were doing the things that you're doing. I can tell you that. So I don't know if
Yes,
that
sir.
answers I hope that answers your question. Is there anything else that you want me to
It
add?
sure does. It sure does. I appreciate your time, sir. Much respect to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, this is Gabriel Stinson.
How you doing, Gabriel?
Good, good. My coach, Matt Hume, says hi. Let
Oh,
him know that I'm going to be
he's
down here.
incredible, man. That guy is the wizard.
Yeah. So my question was, your career was really long. Throughout the years, how has your training changed? Starting from the beginning of your career fighting, and then towards the end, how did you implement new training regimens and strength and conditioning? How did you change those things throughout your age and throughout experience?
Well, I really didn't change a whole lot, but the last few years where the things that I've done in the last few years, the matches that I've done, one was with Michael Nunn, who's a good friend of mine, best pound for pound boxer in the world for 4 years. We did an exhibition fight during the lockdowns, mind you, to get our community back out and together and kind of take back their freedom a little bit. Neither one of us even trained for that. We just got out there and did it, right? But then the last one that I did in 23, I didn't even realize that I was suffering severely from black mold infestation in my respiratory system and my blood. And I was so sick. I was so sick that I couldn't even train for that. I probably should have been in the hospital, to be honest with you. But so now I've gotten on top of, through my business partner, a protocol to kill the black mold in my body and all that sort of stuff and get rid of that. And I'm actually now just starting to chain workouts together again to where I'm coming back health wise. But it was pretty brutal. But I can tell you, just as you age, doing a lot more drilling and a lot more endurance, strength and conditioning stuff, because you've got the experience, right? You already know how to fight. It just comes down to then endurance and a lot of fundamental drilling.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Hey, Pat, I got a question also on that part in terms of training. So, I mean, people coming from wrestling backgrounds, like you came from a wrestling background, you've seen other people come from wrestling backgrounds. Like, what important concepts or what was the transition period, or in terms of going from from just wrestling to MMA aspect? Like, what do you think someone that's coming from that kind of background, what do they need to consider, and what things do they need to, I guess, change as part of their game?
I think the best way to help a wrestler transition into being able to strike is for as long as it takes, having people with really good control who will stand in their face and just help them flow and learn how to strike and get rhythm. Like, wrestlers are terrible with rhythm, a lot of them, right? So Matt Hughes, as great of a fighter as he was, had horrible striking rhythm. Like, it was very difficult to teach him striking, where other wrestlers like Robbie Lawler and Jens Pulver, they got it a lot faster, right? But I think rhythm, and I used to make fun of the wrestlers. I'd put on rap just to or R&B and go, you guys have horrible rhythm. We got to fix something. But it's getting a wrestler out of the propensity to grab all the time. Because a wrestler, once you get close, a wrestler's instinct is to grab while they're getting punched in the face, instead of learning how to move and parry and deflect shots and roll with shots and things like that. So you have to bring wrestlers along intelligently, so that they're just not running into shots constantly or terrified, frankly. So that's kind of the way that I tried doing it anyway. And it seemed to work pretty well.
Got it. And then on that notion too, then what are some good concepts? Like, if someone, or what, wrestlers have different strengths, but what strengths in particular do you find that wrestlers had when it came to MMA that could immediately transition for it?
Well, I think obviously there's a lot, wrestling is, from my perspective, the most difficult sport. I think swimming's the second most difficult. Swimming's brutally hard. But wrestling is, you learn that if you give up for a second, you're going to get run over like a truck. You've got tendon strength, explosiveness, athletic ability, agility. Where the daylight is, all those different things. That's what wrestlers get from wrestling their whole lives. And it's very